Hello everyone, this is Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today on the Livestream show over at Art Joy of Sharing Livestream channel, we were talking about what we call Creativation hacks, which is basically using what you already own to duplicate or mimic what all the new products are that came out at Creativation. The first hack that I had was that I noticed that tons of the stamps that are coming out these days and all the trending stamps from all the different designers are what I call two-step stamps or layering stamps. And they're really exciting and fun, and they've got, multiple layers within multiple colors when you're stamping them, and easy to use, and I thought they were awesome. But I already have a ton of stamps, and I have some favorite stamps that I really love to use. And so I decided that I could make a stamp to go with the solid portion of some of the stamps that I already own by using Kids Fun Foam. I just use the kind that's self-sticky, and I stamped on the paper backing side of it with my stamp, cut it out, and then mounted it on a piece of styrofoam, throwaway styrofoam from a meat tray. And now suddenly I have the first layer of a stamp set. So easy to do, cheap, super cheap, almost using stuff that you're already throwing away. And now you've made yourself a two-step or layering stamp. Easy to do. So I made several of them, and I stamped a lot of card backgrounds with them in different colors using, just basic inks. I'm using the archival inks because that was what was near me, but you could use any kind of ink with it. And I did end up making one with some distress inks at the end. So the next thing I was talking about, hack number 2. Oh yes, I was talking about embossing powder and how embossing powder is a huge rage now. Everybody has it, everybody's mixing it, everybody's making their own. And one of the ones that I thought was kind of cool was the translucent velvets collections from Seth Apter through Emerald Creek. But I can make this myself. All you need is some chunky style embossing powder, which it used to be called ultra thick embossing enamel. Just basically it's the larger pebbles. It can be ground to different sizes. And you can tint it yourself and make a translucent colored thick embossing powder to use in mixed media by yourself. So that's what I did. I put a little bit in each one of those trays, and I didn't make a whole bunch. You could make it to go as you're using it. You don't need to have a whole huge jar of it that you may only use that color once. And I made colors similar to the I don't know if he called it Sedona or Taos or something like that set that he has. And then this thing that I'm embossing it onto, and I didn't go into detail. I didn't do a bunch of layers. Obviously, you'd want to put some more layers on and make it more interesting. But I'm using a postcard that I got in a box from Stencil Girl Products. It just has some art already on it. And I figured I could use that to make a card. Use what you've got. Use what you're going to throw away. Don't waste stuff, because we live in such a society that's so wasteful. It's just a good idea to reuse things. This one could have used a lot more work, but I wasn't going to go into it. I just was talking about how to tint your embossing powder. So all you really need is a big jar of the clear or the beeswax color embossing powder, and then you can tint it whatever you want. You can use dye-based reinkers. You can use alcohol ink to do that. So that was my second hack, if that's what you want to call it. The next thing I was talking about is this trend. I hate this stuff. There's a trend of using flocking, and flocking is this stuff that makes things furry. It comes in different colors. I have these jars from forever ago, and I've never used them. And the way that they've updated it is they've made it into paper that you can die cut, or they've made it into foiling paper that you can use with a heat lamination type system to make a flocked image. You can die cut it. So I just said, well, why don't you just take some sticky back paper of some sort or some tape or something like that that has sticky on the back, rub your flocking powder that you already own onto it, and make your own flocking paper. I didn't actually make a project with that. I only made that little section. I literally hate flocking. I really do. I mean, it's kind of fuzzy. That's kind of cool, but oh, it's messy. It gets everywhere. Goes up your nose. Blah. So then the other one I was talking about here is there's a lot of glitter pastes, three-dimensional glitter paste on the market. That's a new hot thing that people have. And again, if you have a ton of glitter and you're just not even using it, just get yourself some gloss dimensional gel like this 3D gloss gel or heavy body gloss gel from Golden, or one of those that can give you some dimension but dries clear and glossy. That's the things that you need to remember: clear and glossy. And then just mix your oodles and oodles of glitter as you need it by batch into the gloss gel, and bam, you have your own gloss paste, glitter paste, gloss with glitter, glitter paste. So I put that through a stencil and set it aside to dry. And then I was also talking about how you can use that same sticky back paper to make your own die cuttable glitter paper by just rubbing the glitter onto the sticky part and then shaking off the excess. So I did end up using that. The way I did was I stamped some of the butterflies that I had out onto the back, cut them out, and stuck them onto a piece of black, and then I ended up making that into a card eventually. You'll see me making the cards at the end because I went ahead and filmed that after the show was over. Remember, this is while we're talking and doing during live. Peg was talking about how you can make your own tissue collage paper, which is so incredibly obvious. You just use tissue paper and you stamp it yourself, draw on it yourself. You can do your own writing. You can make your own faces. That type of stuff is super popular right now, and a lot of the different designers introduced it during Creativation, and it's just kind of like, hey, make it yourself. Don't waste your money. So there's the dimensional pieces with the glitter gel, which I thought was kind of interesting. Glitter paste. Another one was just blending embossing powders. There was a new company that had a new product where it was basically what they were calling it was black laced embossing powder. And so I just made my own here again by mixing some colored embossing powder with some detail fine black. And it's really hard to see on the camera, but you can see it in the close-ups at the end, that the color is laced with black. It basically just has some very fine black in it. Probably 3 parts to 1 part, colored to super fine black. Yeah, you can't really see it, but it's an interesting effect. Become your own chemist, mix your own embossing powders. All that stuff sitting in a drawer, you might as well use it. It's very trendy right now. If you're not going to use it, just get rid of it. So then I guess I started the process of making cards. Now, I don't think that that I had any other hacks. Peg had some other ones. She was talking about foiling and how you can use your ink toners to foil and things like that, which she has her own speed up video, or else you can obviously go to Art Joy of Sharing and watch the recorded live stream real time version of this. Absolutely can do that. So I just have some scraps of different papers and some folded cards here. I'm making, all these things into cards. I use a ton of thank you notes for everything, for people who purchase my original art, for people who put money into my PayPal donation button, all those type of things. I send a lot of thank you cards. Here's where I was making one with, we were talking about the distress sprays and distress pads with the oxide. There's a new oxide sprays, which I said I was probably interested in, although ink sprays with pump sprays annoy me because they get clogged. But there's really not anything out there like distress oxide, and certainly they have it now in a spray, which would be very convenient. So we were talking about that and the pros and cons of purchasing that. And so I just got out my Distress Oxides and made a two-step stamping with the little butterfly that I had cut out of the fun foam. So I think now we're into card finishing. I just made some different colored layers. I'm stamping some thank you for your kindness, thank you very much, those type of sentiments. And with this card, it was that one of those two-step ones, and I put some of that glitter paste just using a palette knife on there in the centers and around and made it kind of sparkly. This was the Distress Oxide one that I had made earlier, layered it up with some different colored papers, put some ribbons and baker's twine on there, and then I just made a little sentiment and went around the edges with the different colors of ink, and that one was done. Easy peasy. It looks interesting with this, with the mottled background, with the just the one stamp that I made in the background, and then I just highlighted some of the butterflies with the second stamp, which is the one I already owned. Here's the one where I put some of that tinted embossing powder on there, and I cut off what was printed on it, but then I used a little section of that to make my sentiment. It was glossy, very glossy, and the ink wasn't sticking to it, so I had to stamp it twice, and then I ended up going over it with the pen, which doesn't look very nice. I need to kind of work on that one a little bit, but it's because I'm too impatient. I'm trying to get this done in between doing other stuff, and so, yeah, that's what happened. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So there's that one. It would have been fun to put some more layers of those tinted embossing powders on there and make it really, really like an enamel. That's what I would have liked to have done, but I didn't have time on the live stream, and I didn't feel like going back and doing it after the fact. So here's the one where I made layering stamps using one of my favorite leaf stamps, and then of course a stamp that I made out of fun foam. And I stamped this kind of viney pattern on there. I used a sentiment, and then I end up eventually cutting out some leaves and putting them on there in a 3D way with some foam dots, dimensional dots, or dimensional squares. And then there's the original one, the one that I did the heart shape. And I have a lot more ideas for making that even more dynamic, but in this case, I just layered it with some silver metallic. I had stamped it with the watering can gray ink, and so it was already kind of gray. And I layered it up with some silver paper, and then I put some twinkly fluid in a brush pen. It's it's from Spectrum Noir, and it's called something fairy something, maybe I can't remember right now, but pixie, I don't know, something. Anyway, it's sparkly stuff in a brush pen. There's also another brand called Wink of Stella out there that's made by Zig, but the particular one I was using was made by Spectrum Noir. It was sent to me by one of my viewers. So then here I am again stamping the leaves in the watering can gray, and then using my little homemade stamp as the second layer with some of the olive colored ink. The thing about the fun foam is it kind of stays wet with the ink. It kind of almost absorbs it, so you end up having multiple stamping and being able to get some gradients. It's pretty cool. So I cut out those leaves, and then I put them on with dimensional squares onto my card to kind of accent the one area and make a focal point. Of course, having to peel the backs of the squares annoys me. Darn things don't ever want to peel. Didn't like it there. Moved it. So we had a lot of ideas on the live stream today about how to use the products that you already have to mimic or duplicate things that are coming out, because really there's not a whole lot of new things coming out. Stuff I've seen in the past, and it just keeps coming back. It's kind of like fashion, you know, the fashions keep coming back. But there were a few products that I was excited about. One of them is a polymer clay that doesn't harden on its own. It never gets hard. It's just like it's rubbery, and you can mold it, you can sculpt with it, you can use it on different things. And then when you heat it on one side and you start to get it hot, it has a chemical reaction which works itself through the clay and hardens it, and now you have a hardened piece. So you can have a molded piece or a sculpted piece in like 5 minutes, hard and nice. And then you can color it with paint, you can color it with alcohol ink, you know, you can do all those things that you would with a polymer, and it's done in 5 minutes. You didn't have to wait for it to dry. You didn't have to bake it or anything like that. You just use your heat tool. I thought that was really innovative, and that's coming out through the Ranger company. It was made by a chemistry professor. He came up with it, so I was kind of excited about that one. I'm kind of interested in the oxide ink sprays. I'm interested in perhaps the pearl alcohol ink, maybe. I like that the pearl is mixed into it with the binder, and it's not like a mixative that you have to add later. I thought that was kind of neat. What other ones did I don't have my notes right here, but there was a couple other things that I thought would be interesting. So we're certainly not saying don't buy anything. We're saying don't buy things that you already have in just another form. That's all we're saying. Yeah, it was a fun show. If you have time, you might want to go watch it in real time. We did have some crazy amounts of technical difficulties this morning, so weird stuff happened. But here's one of my glitter paste ones that I had done with a stencil from Stencil Girl, and I'm layering those black laced embossing powder ones on top on both of my glitter paste ones, which, oh, you still can't really see the black in it, but it's neat. I promise it's neat. Adding some more sentiments onto things. I just make pretty much all thank you cards unless I need a specific card for some occasion, like a birthday or Father's Day or whatever. I just usually make mostly thank you cards because that's the thing I use. So here's my one with my homemade glitter paper. I'm using another stencil over it. I've cut out my little butterflies and stuck them on the black background. And then I'm going to use some gold metallic paint through this stencil from Stencil Girl that I just got. I believe it's from 2013 Stencil Club, maybe. Something like that. It was an older stencil, but really cool. It kind of reminds me of the sunshine. I don't know. I really liked it. Don't know what it's called, but I used the gold paint through the stencil to make a background around my butterflies, and then I'm going to use some detail gold embossing powder, stamp the butterfly details on there with some Versamark, or actually with a different pigment pad that is gold, and emboss the details. And you'll see I left a little whoopsie in here just for you guys who think it's funny. I put the embossing powder back in the container, then proceeded to spill the container. This is why you put your lids back on. I was actually in the process of putting the lid on and I still spilled it, people. This is why I hate all these powders and flocking and stuff that it's like, come on, really? Anyway, so I finish up this card with a layer of metallic gold paper and a sentiment, and there you have it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment or question below. We have lots of ideas like this all the time. So continue to go over if you can and watch the live stream. You can watch it in real time at 10:30 Central Time on Thursdays. That's AM. And always you can watch the recorded live at a later date because it's always there on the channel. That's the Art Joy of Sharing channel. And we also have a companion Facebook group that supports that community of the live stream, also called Art Joy of Sharing. So You can ask to join that as well if you want to. Share your art there. We're doing lots of things with that group this year. So I think that's pretty much it for me. I'm finishing this last card and there'll be a close-up and then this video will be done. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.